Hello everybody and welcome to today's video on Arma 4. I want to start with when we can expect the release of Arma 4. So Arma was released in 2006 with Arma 2 being released 3 years later in 2009, and then we had Arma 3 in 2013, and between these periods we saw releases of stuff like DLCs and what have you, for example Operation Arrowhead and Apex and stuff like that, between the periods of the actual release of the main Arma games. I have noticed that the DLCs in Arma 3 have now tended to be more content based as opposed to fixing issues with the engine of the game and bugs within the actual game itself. And to me that suggests a change in manpower, focusing manpower on Arma 4, or developing a new game engine for a future game or something like that. And in the 2016 to 2017 roadmap, we were told that they are looking beyond Arma, and I mean it puts my estimates in the next probably 2 years, because we haven't actually heard anything in detail or anything, to be honest, and it's just all been speculation about Arma 4. The next part of this video I want to talk to you about what I want to see in Arma 4. For starters, I want to see more base maps. Obviously you have Altus and Stratus, and then we saw the later release of Malden. We also saw the Apex of Tanoa, and some of those maps were alright, but what I want to see is sort of varied maps. I want one map which is like a desert map, or one completely woodland map, or something like that. Maybe base it off real terrains, real terrains which were fought on and stuff. I know that the current maps are based off those. But I think Altus and Stratus are too similar, and I think I want more varied maps. The next thing I want to talk to you about is water vehicles. We don't really see much action in the water, and it's very limited, and I think the way that we can kind of interact more and have more sort of action in the water is get some better vehicles in there. Obviously you can get add-ons and stuff, but allow for more to be done in the water. Larger boats, you've got your carrier, maybe more features on that, and stuff like that. Maybe even free it. The next thing I want to talk about is better immersion, and what I mean by immersion is sort of making the game more realistic, and one way that this could be done is through the game audio. Now, I use Blast Core because I find that the Arma sounds aren't realistic enough for me, or not loud enough for me and stuff, and Blast Core really just enhances that and really makes me feel like I'm there, especially with the explosions, and the greatest things with helicopters flying over your head and stuff, and it just really changes the atmosphere of the game just by the sounds. And I think Arma need to focus on the audio, because the standard Arma audio wasn't good enough. The next thing I want to talk about is more player customization. What I mean by that, you go on an Arma server today and you'll basically notice everyone pretty similar, everyone probably the same height, and most people have the same facial features, etc. And what I want to see is sort of the fact that I could be able to recognise someone by the way they look in game, as opposed to having to read a name off their head, or recognise them by their voice if they speak. And what could this be done by? Changing heights, more sort of player customization, because I think it really enhances the gameplay. It takes me to my next point, which is about more animations. So we see the standard Arma animations, which are crouch, prone, crawl, whatever, and those are kind of built into the game. But Arma actually has more animations which are hidden away, and you can see them in the animation menu, and I think it'd be great to utilize more of them, because quite a lot of them are good actions, and I feel that a lot of them have just gone to waste sitting there, not actually being used, unless properly coded in. And yeah, so FPS has been a major issue in Arma. I can get 60 maximum, and I think that's the maximum you can get in the game. And you know, if there's an explosion or something, and I just see a massive drop. And there needs to be stable FPS, but there also needs to be much higher FPS. Like other games, I can run, CS:GO at like 400 FPS or something. I just want sort of, that ability to have much, better frames per second. So, AI. I think that the AI in Arma is pretty shit. You shoot at them, what do? They just go prone and start, dicking about, like looking around, and if they spot you, start firing back. They need to be much smarter, be able to react, to the scenario. Like if you're in combat, maybe run, take cover. If you collide with a vehicle, it's not like the AI tend to, do a 16-point turn, but it needs to be more swift than that. And I think it must be quite hard to do, but I think if this game, and if we were to use the AI a lot more, as opposed to getting more, add-ons and stuff, I think, they need to work on the AI, and that will make the game a lot more enjoyable. So, I'm going to talk about helicopters and their immersion. I'm not a big fan of the helicopters in the game, in the fact that you can just press engine on and your helicopter starts up. There is a mod for Arma, which is the AH-64D Apache, where you start that up by putting the battery on, putting the APU on and stuff. Obviously I'm not saying go as complicated as that, but maybe have the option to put like a battery on and then like properly power it up and give it time to power up, because I don't think it's great to just be able to put engine on and just 10 seconds later collective up and just dick off, essentially. I want to talk to you now about the radios. I use Task Force Radio, other people use Acre, but not many people use the actual inbuilt in-game, communication system, because it is shit. Like, honestly, it is fucking shit. You can hardly, understand people. It's just not realistic enough. Like, you don't get the radio clicks and stuff. You don't get like proper channels on radios, and it's all done like vehicle channel and stuff. Make it realistic. If I'm next to someone, I can hear them. If I'm further away from them, it's slightly harder to hear them. Just make it something which is not what it is now, because it is terrible, and I just hate to use it. I've disabled my keys for it because I just think it's tragic. And it brings me on to my final point, which is a new game engine. So Arma have told us that they are working on a new game engine, and I hope that this is going to be much better than the one it is currently, because if I saw the current game engine of Arma 3 in Arma 4, I would not buy Arma 4. It is terrible. I mean, for example, the user interface in it's terrible. I don't want to be scroll wheeling to get into vehicles. I want to be able to, press a key on my keyboard and get into a vehicle. I don't want all the options of the seats to come up. I want to be near one seat, and be able to get into that seat. I think the inventory can have some work done on it. I just don't think it is really appealing, and the user interface needs to be much better. So, in conclusion, I just want to say that I'm not having a go at Arma 3. I like the game, I've played it for years, but this is what I would suggest to Arma 4 as a, player of Arma 3 for quite a long time now, about how they can make it better. I mean, I'm sure it is going to be better, and I'm sure that, it will keep me entertained for another, many years, but, I think if they can nail these features, it'd make the game much more enjoyable for me.